the
All right, so I'm heading to pick up a free 1994, I'm pretty sure it's a 94, Cutlass Ciera station wagon. I'm sure many of you remember I already have one of these station wagons. I have a 1990 Cutlass Ciera wagon. I left that up in my barn in New Hampshire. I didn't bring it down here yet because it's got a bunch of issues with the engine. I think it needs intake gaskets. It's running like crap. It's puking oil and coolant everywhere, which isn't a huge deal, but I never got around to it, so I left it up there. I wasn't necessarily looking for another wagon, but I'm in a group for these front-wheel drive classic GM cars that I love so much. Been in it for a long time on Facebook. And one of the members posted up yesterday this wagon. He's a dealer like me that loves buying these cars, collecting them and selling them, and he bought this last year knowing it had supposedly a bad transmission. Never got around to fixing it, and now it won't start. So instead of junking it, he'd rather see it go to one of us in the group. It's a clean Florida vehicle, no rust, in good cosmetic condition. It's white, just like mine, except it has a gray interior. So for free, you can't really go wrong. I gotta drive almost 300 miles all the way to the Tampa area. So obviously there's some fuel expense, but probably under $100. I have a few other things I need to do while I'm in Tampa anyway, so it's not necessarily a trip solely for the wagon. So I really don't count the fuel expense. So it's basically a free Cutlass Ciera wagon. And I'm thinking it may just be a sensor of the transmission. I saw somebody write up about this issue these transmissions have when they get stuck in third gear, as this one is. If it's not, I can have the transmission rebuilt, get the car for free. So even if I spend $800 rebuilding the transmission, I'm still into it for a lot less than it's worth for a real clean, straight-bodied wagon. Or I could do a swap, put an L67 power plant in it. We'll see, but I don't want to see this thing go to the junkyard, and it makes a fun Sunday road trip. So I'm heading out there now. About to start driving through the Everglades here, so I will tune back in a bit. And you can see I've got the tow dolly hooked up. Look forward to getting there. All right, so I made it. I'm here at Motorsports Unlimited Auto Group. We got Brian here, the owner.
How you doing?
And he was very gracious enough to give me this Ciera wagon for free. Brian, you want to tell this quick story of how this came to be?
Well, as you can see, I've got a couple of these things too, and I'm on the Facebook group with Al. So I got this out of Port Charlotte, Fort Myers area. Guy had a bad tranny. I was going to go ahead and do the tranny work to it and all that, and just got busy with everything else. So just time got in the way, so I figured, you know what, might as well put it to good use and give it to someone who's going to do something good with it.
Brian's an enthusiast like myself for the classic front-wheel drive GM cars, and he didn't want to see this thing go to the junkyard, so he offered it up on the group. And of course, being that I live in Florida, everybody was tagging me to come get this car. And being that it is a wagon, I couldn't resist. You guys should remember I do have a 90 Ciera wagon, same color. But I brought that car up to New Hampshire. It's still up there in my barn. So been kind of missing having the wagon down in Florida, throwing the kayaks up on the roof. So at the entry price of free, you really can't go wrong. Florida car. So we know it's got no rust, and it's even got the original dealer sticker on the back, which I always love to see that. So it's a great candidate to put some work into. Even the paint's in excellent condition. Better paint than my wagon, that's for sure. And Brian said the AC was even blowing cool, so that's great. This has the L80, this is what, the L82, right? Yeah. The 3.1? So my 90's got the 3300, which, you know, is a little bit better of an engine in terms of upkeep. These will have intake gasket issues sometimes, but I do like these engines a lot. You guys know my obsession with the Malibus that have these engines, so I know my way around them. I figure, and the other problem with this vehicle is it's not running anymore. When Brian bought it, it was running. It would only drive in third, but he hasn't touched it in a while, so it could have been a fuel pump that went. But I'll be able to dig into that, whatever it is, to get it running again. And, you know, absolute worst case scenario, if the drivetrain's just shot in this thing, yank it out, drop it in L67, and we've got a little sleeper wagon here. So if you're interested, if you're in Florida and the Tampa area and you're looking for a classic front-wheel drive GM, Brian's got probably the biggest selection in the area. I'll just give you a quick look over here. You've got two other wagons, but I think you said you have one of them sold, right?
Blue one's sold.
Blue one's sold?
Not sold yet.
The gray one's not sold yet.
So that one's only got 64,000
64,000 miles. This could be you. I'm going to show you. He's got a great detail guy because this thing looks brand new. Look at this wagon. Absolutely beautiful. Brian's a great guy for being out there saving these cars like I do. There's not too many of us. And every person that does this certainly helps keep these cars around for many years to come, because we know they won't die. It's just people who don't care and donate them when grandma dies, and they see their demise when they're still perfectly functioning vehicles. So big props to Brian for fighting the good fight like I do, going to the auction every week and scooping up these cars whenever he can. Even when they're not in the best of shape, you know, Brian still sees the potential like I do. He's got a guy who does paint jobs for a good price. So this car is going to get painted. What a beautiful color on this 98. Absolutely gorgeous. And again, this wagon's sold, so there are people out there like me. They're crazy enough that they want these cars. And we also have a beautiful Sabre down that way that will be available soon when the title comes in. So Motorsport and Limited Auto Group. There's Brian, the owner. He's a great guy, obviously, because look what I'm bringing home with me. I got a 4-hour drive ahead of me, so I'm gonna hit the road. See you guys back at the house. So I'm home with the wagon. 4+ hour trip, successful each way, a little over 8 hours total. No issues with my Escalade, the dolly, or the Ciera sitting on the dolly, which is always a good thing. And I spent about $100 in gas, so not too bad. So I haven't checked fluids or anything on this wagon. It was free. I'm obviously not going to be that kind of asshole who's checking the thing over. I could scrap this and make a profit and get all my gas paid, and I had a nice free trip out to Tampa for the day. So I haven't checked any fluids yet. I'm going to check the fluids now. I am hoping that the transmission problem is the neutral position switch. Someone mentioned that might be the issue when this was posted for free on the Facebook group. They say whenever those go bad, these transmissions get stuck in third gear. If it's not a big deal. I'm certainly expecting the worst, hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. Put a transmission in it, not a big deal at all. Again, low cost of entry, being that it was free. Had to go out to Tampa anyway to do a couple of things, so I don't really count the gas. And this thing's in great shape. It's a great candidate to do some work to. I mean, the interior is in nice shape. The dashboard is in great shape. It's not falling apart. The seats are in nice condition. Headliner's all there. It needs some power window switches. He had taken those out and used them on another wagon, which, again, not a big deal. I can grab those at the junkyard. There's a Ciera sedan there right now. I believe it still had the switches in it. Body straight. The body of this is in better shape than my 90 wagon, which the paint all flaked off, as these white GM cars do of this era. And mine had a big dent in the passenger fender and some rust on the rear liftgate, which this vehicle has none of those issues. I do prefer the 3300 more in terms of simplicity. The L82 is a great engine. It's a lot smoother running and a little more powerful, but the intake gaskets, as everybody knows, is an issue with these engines. I'm not sure if they've been done yet. Looking down in the side here, I don't see any coolant, which is a good sign. Usually you'll see some little puddles of coolant around the intake gasket area, and I don't see any. And the oil looks to be like oil and not like a mixture. So this one's probably already had it done, especially at the mileage and the age of the vehicle. So this is the thing I wanted to check. Transmission fluid, see if it's burnt. It's certainly not pink like it should be. It's brown, but the smell will be a dead giveaway if this transmission's gone or not. And actually, oh, I already got crap all over my paint. Actually, this smells like transmission fluid. It doesn't smell burnt at all. It still has that nice sweet smell to it. Certainly doesn't mean for sure the transmission's good, but definitely a better sign than the transmission fluid being burnt or black. It looks to be just dirty, typical 150,000 mile fluid. Has probably never been changed. So I haven't heard this thing run. The battery was dead, and Brian was telling me that it would not start. It could even be because this battery is so old. So we'll have to see. I've got some batteries laying around here. I'll throw one in and see if it starts up. I got a little bit of starting fluid too. To be honest, I don't think Brian even messed with it. It looks like no one's taken off these screws in a long time for the throttle body here to spray in some starting fluid. He probably went to start it. It wouldn't start, and you know, being that he's got other things to worry about, just said, okay, I'm gonna get rid of it. So hopefully it starts up, because it'll at least allow me to get this off of the dolly and be able to move it around the yard until I get around to fixing it. So first thing I'm going to try is that. All right, just put a battery in. We got interior lights. Let's see what she does, if anything at all. Seems like it wants to. All right, I burn that battery out and put a little squirt of ether in there. See if that helps. Well, that's interesting. It doesn't want to start even with fuel. You know, being that it's later in the evening, I'm not going to mess around with this anymore. Tomorrow I'll dig into it a bit more and see why it won't start. Just one interesting discovery I'll mention quickly. I just turned the key to see if I hear the fuel pump come on, and sure enough, the fuel pump does come on. You can hear it buzzing back here, so I don't think we have a fuel pump issue. That would explain why the starting fluid didn't do anything. I sprayed quite a bit in there. So, you know, if it was a fuel pump, it should have cranked over and started. We may have an issue with a fuse or a crankshaft sensor or something like that. I'll have to dig in a little bit deeper. I've never had this issue with an L82 before, with a crank no start, not fuel related. But fuel pump's working, which is good. It could be something stupid, and perhaps it could also be responsible for the odd behavior the transmission was doing when it was only staying in third gear. It might be one thing leading to all these issues. Could be electrical. I'm going to dig around a bit, do as much diagnosing as I can here without being too loud, and maybe I'll find something. Maybe I'll find a clue.